When I think about first-time parents, I think about how not only do these parents pray for the perfect baby, but the parents also pray to be the perfect parents. First-time parents frequently read books and read articles to prepare themselves. They want to know what to expect. They want to learn what it means if the baby cries like this or if the baby acts that way. There are doctors and nurses and classes and podcasts that help parents be the best possible parents for their babies. So, what would you think if one of these perfect parenting resources told you it's perfectly okay? It's perfectly okay for you to take your child into the big city and leave them alone. It's perfectly okay to let them wander around in public, entering whatever buildings they want to, talking with other people, and actually seeking wisdom from total strangers. Would that sound like perfect parenting advice to you? Well, Mary, the mother of Jesus, thought it was one bad idea. But Joseph, on the other hand, well, he didn't think it was such a bad idea. Today, in our gospel reading that we just heard Judy share with us, we see Mary and Joseph putting this perfect parenting advice to the test. What do you do when you lose your kid? Mary and Joseph were worried. And they had to walk all the way back to Jerusalem, a 3-day journey on foot, in order to find their beloved child. When they finally found Jesus, he was calmly studying with the rabbis and the teachers in the temple, as if he didn't have a care in the world. His only hunger was to learn. Well, when Mary finally saw her son, she just vents. "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." And now I gotta say, that sounds like something I would have said if I was in that same situation. There's that whole mix of relief and anger all wrapped up in the same moment. But Joseph remained silent. What's it like to parent the Son of God? Exactly how does one parent God? Especially when you know he's not your kid. Today is the end of the story for Joseph. Today's gospel reading is the last we hear of this man. Why? Where'd he go? What happened? We don't know. But we can presume that Joseph was a great parent. It's highly likely that Joseph was the one who taught Jesus to read the Torah, that is the first 5 books of our Bible. Mary couldn't have done it because, as was typical in the day, women were not taught to read. So Joseph would have been the one who brought Jesus to synagogue, doing all that he could to help the faith of his son take root and grow. Now, we all know that it was God who inspired the ministry of Jesus' teaching, healing, miracles. But Jesus also learned an awful lot through Joseph. God channeled inspiration from God through Joseph onto Jesus. It was Joseph who planted those seeds of inspiration into Jesus. Seeds of what it meant to be a man of gentleness, compassion, and caring. Seeds of what it meant to stand up for what you believe, even if it means risking your own life. Seeds of what it means to trust God, no matter how dire the circumstances in life may be. Joseph did all those things. In the Gospel of Matthew, there's a passage where we see Joseph demonstrating great gentleness, compassion, and caring towards Mary. He stood by her, no matter what the families and the neighbors were whispering behind their backs. He made sure that Mary and Jesus were safe as they made their journey to Egypt to flee the evil Herod. Joseph risked his life to protect the baby Jesus as the slaughter of the holy innocents rampaged through Bethlehem. In all of these things, Joseph trusted God. No matter how dire, how crazy, how difficult the situation was. So even though the gospel writers rarely mention Joseph, he had a very powerful influence on his family and on Jesus. I just imagine Jesus working side by side with Joseph in a carpentry shop. And I imagine Jesus talking to Joseph, telling him of this pull, this undeniable call he felt to seek out John the Baptist, his cousin, in the wilderness, and to find his destiny beyond the small town of Nazareth. And I can just hear Joseph encouraging Jesus to follow this calling, just as Joseph followed his calling to be a loving husband and a supportive parent. From the very beginning, God asked a lot of Joseph. Joseph needed to find an entirely new way to be a parent and to raise a family. He needed to do it differently than any of his family or friends had ever tried. All the while relocating from this country to this country, back to this country. That was a challenge. Joseph needed to travel with a pregnant wife, carrying a child that was not his. He was forced to leave his home and participate in a census. He traveled to a land that was hostile toward him. There, he couldn't find shelter. He was invaded by strangers in the middle of the night when his poor, exhausted wife and his brand newborn baby just wanted to rest. And yet he received these guests with graciousness. He never complained. He never threw a temper tantrum. He never insisted on talking to the hotel manager of this dump and demand a better room. He never demanded that things go his way. All the dreams that Joseph had received from God built up his faith. And this faith convinced him to parent this child, to protect this child, to teach this child, to release this child and finally to believe in this child. Even though it was the strangest parenting technique that anyone had ever heard. It was this kind of faith that brought Joseph through the pain, the confusion, the complications, the anguish. Joseph trusted God's unusual plan, even when normal felt much more like abnormal. Joseph trusted God when the plan was so different. And because of that, oftentimes scary. Joseph was a man of faith, willing to trust God no matter how dire the circumstances were. Joseph's faith can be our faith as well. Follow where God is calling you to go. Keep recalling the dreams you've had, the visions you've seen, the guidance you've received. Have faith that even when everything looks new, unfamiliar, different, and scary, it's going to be okay. Trust God, no matter how dire the circumstances. May it be so for you and for me. Amen.